afecto en las prácticas del poliamor o lo que las palabras callaban sobre el cuerpo, Departamento de Psicología Social, Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona. Este sería el capítulo 5, From Flowed Monogamy to Liminal Polyamor, Suspended Transition to Alternative Affective Orderings. Bien, creo que esto está en inglés. Es que no nos daría muchos. Yo lo voy a leer, pero bueno, no nos va a dar mucho. No sabía que estaba en inglés. Monogamy is the norm for romantic and intimate relationship in present Western societies. Having other sexual and affective relationships in a monogamous engagement is acknowledged and informally accepted instead of unilateral and other. Convert non-monogamy, polyamor professes a consensual, ethical, and responsible non-monogamy. The personal transformation of cultural normative frameworks is characteristic of the experience of becoming polyamorous. This paper explores this experience under the umbrella of liminality. First stage of polyamorous relationships. Polyamor is understood as a reordering of social formation, illustrating the contours of liminal hotspots in the term of suspended transition where social category become both and neither nor. The problem was in me, even though I was clear that I was in love with my life, even though she knew I wanted to be with her at all my life. I could not stop thinking about the other person, to feel that something was missing, to see her and feel alive, complete. I am aware that I am in love with her too. I have said that the problem was in me because I feel terrible. I felt I was betraying my wife for falling in love with someone else. I was confused and did not understand how I could have feelings for two people at once. My traditional monogamous schema said that I did not really love my wife if I had feeling for my ex-lover. It was at that time, while being anxious, that I started to look for information on polyamor. John on an online forum, November 2012. Polyamor refers to alternative forms of relationships characterized as consensual, ethical, and responsible non-monogamy. Being openly involved in polyamorous relationships is often associated with negative stereotypes such as untrustworthy partners and dysfunctional parents. Non-monogamous relationships are considered too complicated to complete, and there is not much legal recognition for people involved in polyamorous relationships, although monogamy constitutes the social and cultural norms for romantic and intimate relationships in present Western societies. It is common to have non-consensual and convert non-monogamy. Non-monogamy was central to the sexual liberationist movement and the commune movements of 60s and 70s. Yes, it was only in the 2000 that this area received future academic interests. Recently in Catalonia, like in other industrialized Western countries, polyamor has become a political banner from groups seeking legal recognition to alternative forms of family. Polyamor's practice that has opened a number of intense and troubled emotional situations. The above experts illustrates the trouble derived from the transformation of personal intimacy in late 20th century and acknowledge the presence of a traditional form intimacy by monogamous traditional schema. In it highlights form of involvement that followed structure social patterns in long-term intimate relationships within institutionalized family relations, definite roles and clear social conventions. Monogamy constitutes, in the sense, a specific ordering of material, hosting, economy, and semiotic meanings associated with the relationship's expectations, elements constituting a new a network with emergent properties, subjective, affective, and emotional states. This is affective ordering based of mutual togetherness and definite emotional patterns performed in the ritualized events such as family gatherings, celebrations. Affective orderings have been under heavy reconstructions for some time. In this sense, monogamy and polyamor could be seen as sitting at the extreme opposite ends of a spectrum that is constituted by a number of new emergent orderings that have started to subvert established norms and diversify the landscape of available patterns of intimate relationships, including the move away from marriage to cohabitation that has become widely accepted in many Western countries. Nevertheless, polyamor puts into question established form of romantic love as it does not require the intimate attachments to be exclusive to a single partner. Even when polyamor might take the shape of a long-term relationships, it does not require exclusivity. Despite it could be argued that any relationships is in continuous transformation. Polyamor lacks a clear know-how and it is under social scrutiny and disapprobation, engaging in such form for relationships locates the participants in a positions where social position and the responsibilities and demands associated with it do not have a clear prototype that could serve as a guide. For this reason, participants in polyamorous relationships develop multiple and often divergent narratives of the self and relational commitments are open to negotiation as far as there is not a clear predefined and detailed model. More importantly, is in comparison with other forms of relationships, polyamor poses a challenge to common relational expectation as it redefines one of basic principles in current narratives of romantic love, the exclusivity of the intimate relationships. This is a postulate that couldn't still be considered to lie are at the center of common marriage and cohabitation arrangements, rather than focusing on established polyamorous relationships. This paper explores the difficulties in entering in a polyamorous relationships. The example considered in the paper comes from a 5 years ethnographic research in the Catalonian polyamorous group, along with the field notes and streak of virtual interactions. The empirical material includes interviews, narratives, and reflection from polyamorous workshops and a virtual ethnography in the social networks, Facebook forums, and the polyamorous email list. The polyamorous email list started on July 2004 with about 1248 Spanish speakers, mainly from Spain, some from Latin America, and few living in countries that do not speak Spanish. The most common topics in the list: welcoming, informal and formal meetings, theoretical and practical discussions, mainly about gender, relationships, alternative sexual practice, alternative pornography, and the presentation and discussion of personal issues. Within this last category, we have selected an email that illustrates a common paradoxical dynamic in polyamorous relationships in terms of not being able to provide a resolution of their personal situation in the monogamous of polyamorous orderings. The experts unravel the circumstance of a life episode of a man from central Spain wandering in the between the monogamous and polyamorous ordering. We will be using John as his pseudonym unless otherwise stated. The excerpts come from the email interchange on November 2012. Trouble ordering. We would like to explore John's online narrative in more detail to illustrate that the liminal state between fractured monogamy to a deferred polyamorous ordering emerges within a highly emotional narrative. The narrative traces the troubled orderings and expresses the ways in which the monogamous norm creates a paradoxical framework from John's attempt to make sense of his personal situation to feel romantic love for two women, one of whom he is married to. My name is John. I'm married to an amazing woman, and we have a monogamous relationships. We have children. About 1 year ago, I started feeling attracted to a married woman with children. We were both aware that our official relationships had deteriorated or in the process of deteriorating. by defining by defining the relationships as monogamous. Jones is contextualizing the relation within a frame that contains and delimit the potential complexities of personal relationships within social conventions that regulate conduct and experience. He is stating and the same time the difficulties of maintaining this particular ordering deterioration that could be read as a justification for an action that constitutes a personal betrayal to the promise given in marriage would also question the monogamous ordering. A set of emotions are delineated within the opposition between the official and the otherwise unofficial relationships and oppositions that points to semiotic and material ordering where his actions are taking place. The reference to a social structuration is present in the initial experts where he talks about my monogamous traditional schema, connecting both the social and subjective monogamous ordering. The notion of ordering refrains us from falling into the internal-external metaphor and opens up the exploration of phonema that fractally reproduces in different local, global, cultural, interpersonal, and or subjective occasions. We feel in love and start a relationship for 6 months. It did not work. We felt terrible about what we were doing. The same betrayal, guilt. In the end, my wife found out. This experience depends the subjective extent of the monogamous ordering as in the present event when they are outside of public scrutiny. The love affair is haunted by the normative expectations of their official relationships. This is an ordering that phantasmatically defines what is expected by the participants in the relationship and how their partner should feel about the situation, while highly personal and subjective. The whole situation is also institutionality signaled by the family roles and the social positions of these roles, stressing the manifold levels where the monogamous ordering unfolds. John describes the situation after the wife finds out in the following terms. We spent a month of hell. Now he begin to see the way out of the tunnel. At last, we have some things clear. I know that I am madly in love with her wife, and so is she wife, that I will never do anything to hurt our relationships again, and that we have to work hard on our relationships because it was and still is very much damaged. Never, nevertheless, nevertheless, we have, but there is no shortage of love and enthusiasm to work things out. So far, nothing new. This is typical of many conventional monogamous relationships. Cheating, finding out, having a bad time, and getting back together. Nothing new. Transgression is also contained in the monogamous ordering accounting for the emotional phantasmatically felt by John when cheating his wife. Having an affair is located within the normative realm, and having a secret affair of having an affair in another space like on holidays has progressively been accepted within the monogamous norm along with the attached emotional states. Having an affair confirms the monogamous ordering, and this is the reason for secrecy as well as consolidates the validity of the norm. A rule violation confirms the rule. Nothing is more monogamous than transgressing monogamy, and there is no greater demonstration of love than giving up all others for loved one. The restitution of the monogamous norm needs to be resolved within the notion of the dyadic exclusivity. After the breakdown of the norm has become public, the monogamous semantics advise to finish the relationships with the dishonest partner or to forgive the partner by restoring the monogamous vow. The monogamous affective ordering includes cultural practice and understanding of gender relationships and family. It creates a debate between the us, those involved in the couple, and the others treating the couple and ordering organized around from the obligation liability of following the monogamous social norm and the desire that the norm prohibits. Under the monogamous ordering, having another intimate relationships is often characterized in the terms guilt. The norm that John breaks in is twofold. On one hand, not telling the partner something affecting the relationships, and secondly, having another relationships. The expression of a constant pain is connected with the personal and social evaluation crossing the limit the limits of monogamy. In this deadlock, the social norm of monogamy with the discourses of monogamy, faithfulness, and honesty and are constraining John. He crosses the limits of monogamy when he breaks the rules. This is central to the semantics of romantic love or love passion or love as passions. This is not just an idea because it is also performative. You demonstrate, you demonstrate your love for X by making it clear that you love them alone. You leave other candidates and you focus exclusively on X. If you find yourself loving others too, this means within this ordering that is fact you do not love X, and if you follow the rules, you should exit so that you and they both have a chance to find the one. Liminal hotspot. This paper starts with an excerpt exhibiting uneasiness, pain, confusion, and disorientation, referring to the situation where he is loving her wife and at the same time he has feeling for another woman, a situation with limit control where previous certainties are removed and one enters a delicate, uncertain, malleable state. Something might happen to one that alters the very core of one's being. The emotions of love, fulfillment, happiness, or security promised by the monogamous ordering have become the sad, betrayal, guilt, resignation, frustration. In John's case, despite her, her physical exclusion, the other relation becomes an underlying virtual presence. John solves his uneasiness by framing his experience under a new form, a reordering of the emotions that are being put on strain. This is the description after having information on polyamor. I began to understand things. I began to understand myself. I began to accept myself. I understood in the end that loving two people is possible. I have chosen to be honest with my wife and tell, tell her how I feel. I must accept my feeling for the two. How much pain have I caused by my words? How bad have I felt? Yes, yet I have been liberated. Finally, I was able to feel truly faithful to myself and my feeling for the two people. Polyamor appears in your narratives as the potential ordering that could accommodate an experience that is otherwise excluded in the monogamous ordering. By telling his wife, John becomes performatively entangled in a rite of passage, a passage between the delineated monogamy and the uncertain polyamor, a passage stirring different layers of material and discursive ordering. The action of apprising your partner of the existence of another relationships enact a rite of separation with the monogamous ordering, a situation that should ideality, ideally terminate with a different ordering. This could explicate why telling of your partner constitutes a highly emotional ceremony as it signals the questioning of the monogamous foundational rule of one and only one love, an inauguration of the polygamous ordering. The excerpt stresses the liberating effect of polyamorous frame while at the same time acknowledging the pain inflicted by moving away from the monogamous ordering. The polyamorous clears up the anxieties of the convert and dishonest relationships that characterize Western intimate relationships by conforming to the cultural norms of coherence, honesty, and authenticity. Nevertheless, nevertheless, as argued in the introduction to polyamorous ordering in Far from Ingrained, things are no things are not simple. My wife is scared to death with the situation. She has asked me not to talk to my ex-lover. Obviously, I'm satisfying her need. Although this is very painful. I'm aware that my ex-lover is having a really bad time, and it hurts me not to be for her. It hurts me to see she having a bad time as much as it hurts me to see the pain that I cause to my wife with all this. The transitional character of liminality is apparent in the previous excerpt where John is stuck in a suspended and paradoxical transition where he is both monogamous, stays with his wife, and polyamorous, openly loves two women at the same time. In other words, John is in the process of becoming polyamorous, highlighting the undesirability of the position. While this position in this transit, John is also dangling in a neither nor space. He has neither his monogamous relationships working properly, not nor can he enjoy his polyamorous one. He has lost the monogamous heart, but he has not arrived at the polyamorous shore, and it does not seem that this situation will get resolved any anytime soon. A painful, suspended transition where an amalgam of affects intermingle both orderings. Nevertheless, despite and all the pain, this is described as a liberation, as an opening where although he can not live polyamorously, polyamorously, he can express polyamory regardless of what his wife or lover might think, say, to do about it. The continuous process of being in liminality in an ambiguous transitional situation are characteristic of liminality hotspots. I, I fantasize with the idea that there will be a day when I will be able to be together with both of them and hold their hands as a sign of my love without feeling bad about myself or feel bad about them. Today it is an impossible fantasy, but at last I have found a solace and a way to feel good and peace with myself, with the possibilities to honestly express my love for both of them without denying it, without lying to me or any of us. Even in Even if polyamor is an alternative from John, and he can define himself as polyamorous, even when he can picture himself walking, holding both hands, the wife and another lovers. This is a portrayal that has to be postponed from a desirable future. Polyamory is not presented as an immediate solution but as a yearned possibility. This in an occasion of transition, a troubled transition, and at the same time a process of becoming. John is trapped in the troubled and suspended transition where he cannot return to the familiarity and taken for granted rules of monogamy nature. Can he easily move to the promised lights of polyamory? Nevertheless, the phantasmatic potentiality of the new ordering introduces discursive element in the present ordering related with emotion of solace and peace connected with the experience of communitas and participations with a form of relationships based on honesty and love. People living polyamorously recognize its unfinished character. Response to John P1. It is very difficult. I know it's complicated. I know there is pain and I think there will be pain till all of us understand that love is not possession. Love is such a broad concept that it is not possible, and it should not be dosed that I can love and feel for two people. Will John, I wish you will, meaning that I wish you can feel your love for who you want, live it, and above all, express it freely, naturally, and friendly. For me, much of the romantic love is based on friendships. If we are friends, we understand, agree, give a space, do not judge, we do not demand. It could be argued that polyamor is located within a liminal space where complication and pain cannot be avoided till, till there is a general transformation of our subjectivity. It is a potential ordering that we can approach until, for example, there is a transformation in which love necessarily includes friendship. Polyamor, as the expert suggests, constitutes an affective ordering that could be read as relational environmentalism, where individual rights are valued but also constrained by obligation to be negotiable in consideration for of the rights and well-being of other interest system. Nevertheless, this is an unfinished ordering even by people who live in polyamor relationships. Answer P9. My experience is the following. I was married for about 12 years, fell in love with another man, and he fell in love with me too. I told it to my husband because the discomfort that the situation made me feel was unbearable. At first, I tried to leave the other relationships while I could not. Then my husband suggested me that I should try for a while with the other man so I could choose between the two. When I thought that it was going to be impossible for me to choose, polyamory appeared. Suddenly, I realized that I'm not the only one that feels love in this way, and I see it clearly now. Happy and joyful, I told it to my husband, and oh surprise, he did not get it. Well, he understood it, but he died. He did not share it. He he has accepted it now, but only for me in all this time, more than 2 years now. We talk, cry, laughed. We have been through situations of jealousy, of reproach, of mutual incomprehension, and also really good moments. I learned a lot of myself. I have also learned things I do not like so much, things that are difficult to accept. I turned out that I have read books. I have email conversations in this group, and I'm not the only one feeling this badly. To cheer you up. I must the, I must tell you that there have been totally different moments. I now feel the queen of the world. I have been thinking that happiness is to tell that I do not change myself for any other. I have learned to appreciate life in another way, to seize the moment of happiness that are offered to me. Nevertheless, there will always be situation to worry about. January 2012. This is an expert that describes an experience similar to John's indefinitely question the monogamous ordering and leads to an vulnerable emotional situation. The monogamous grammar suggests that one should choose between one of the two partners. Poliamor offers a possibility future ordering that could resolve the troubles of the current situation after 2 years. She is gone through different emotional states, a passage of learning, pain, and enjoyment that would be consistent with a Turnerian version of liminality. Although Turner himself warns about the separation between process and structure, we could find some similarities when considering the opposition that Turner draws between liminality and the status system. Nevertheless, instead of talking about of transition between the limited structures, we can see imprecise ordering that are never wholly fulfilled, also accepting that the polyamorous ordering is somehow less stable than monogamy. Despite the similarities between both cases, and considering that polyamorous experience live in a liminal plane insofar there is not a clear set of cultural norms suggesting the mentor and adequate emotional response. In polyamorous context, we can draw a difference between John's experience and that for the last excerpt. John is questioning the monogamous ordering about, but he is from he is far from the ordering that politically has been constituted by the polyamorous community. Despite he responds to the monogamous resolution, he is no longer committed to monogamy, but he is not yet polyamorous. He is living the tension between feeling like polyamorous and without practicing it. The tension between a future discursive ordering, what we believe polyamor could be, and a present semiotic material ordering, the present affective situation, this liminal situation where social categories are both and neither nor, and the effect associated to indeterminacy of the ordering characterizes liminal host-post. The following experts illustrates the suspended transition in which John is located. I would like to find people to talk with without feeling I am being judged or crazy. I wish I could find a place to relive my feelings and feel understood. I'd like to tell you my experience and how I got to feel like polyamorous without practicing it. Life is more complicated than we believe. Polyamor and liminal hotspots. From a political perspective, becoming polyamorous could be read as a transition from fractured, unsuccessful attempts to conform with monogamous expectation to a more sincere way of conducting multiple relationships, allowing this to be discussed openly. This transition is characterized by a high level of ambiguity and uncertainty, given the lack of widespread cultural norms for polyamor, making it inherently paradoxical, as far as Western societies are based on a monogamous definition of romantic love, which has shaped traditional arguments around marriage, kinship, and inheritance. Polyamory constitutes an outsiderhood liminality, where individuals are set outside the structural arrangements of a given social system, or voluntary setting himself apart from the behavior of status-occupying, role-playing members of that systems because they are not legally or socially recognized. Polyamorous families find themselves in a liminal situation where identities and the social position and the responsibilities and demands associated with this position are constantly challenged and redefined. The effective rearrangement of emotional mappings, like jealousy, for example, does not lie in the individual traits or emotional states, but in the particular ordering for certain semiotic material elements. In other words, the wider import of this note, Spinoza, is to indicate that it is not the properties of what is encountered that are decisive in emotions, nor the qualities of the affected individual. What is at issue is the composition of an affective relationships. So euphoria and dysphoria are not the ground of any given emotion any more than musical harmony is the ground of the simultaneous tones which give rise to it. The names, the names of the many emotions we experience are merely the names given to differently assembled euphoric or dysphoric relations, akin to short. Polyamory is located within a social reordering where complication and plane come together with the general transformation of our subjectivity. It constitutes a potentiality that needs to be unfolded along intimate normative transformation like, for example, the loosening of the distinction between love and friendship. Becoming polyamorous involves the transformation of the configuring element that constitutes oneself or normative monogamous, and the focus on polyamorous transformation exposes the configurations sustaining normative and the transitional forms of intimate relationships. A traditional perspective called approach this transition in terms of internal emotional states enacted by specific events, like, for example, saying your partner with somebody else, and the emotional training, understanding, or practice that would allow the emotionality cope with a particular emotional situation, being able to accept having a triadic relationships. While the exploration of John's cases highlights the suspended transition in the passage from monogamous to polyamorous practice, it should be noted that this process goes parallel to the deeper transformation of the affective networks of dispositions that constitute intimate affective relationships. The present excerpts need to be read as examples of a certain from that is being fractally reproduced in the society. Therefore, we cannot detach that desirability and fascination of polyamor from our present economic context of increasing geographical and labor mobility. This case presented as show how liminal experiences are central in present societies, and in that sense, we could argue that we face a world of permanent liminality. The strain of living, the strain of living the monogamous norm within a context of a highly volatile society facilitates the constitution of becoming polyamorous as an emergent phenomenon taking place in our contemporary society and inscribed in the general societal reordering. The importance of non-monogamy in intimate relationships needs to be considered within the relational uncertainty of post-Fordist societies where individuals are continually obligated to negotiate its lifestyle following the changeable patterns of consumer society. Non-monogamy is central to post-Fordist intimate relationships in the context polyamory resonates with our broader social context of liquid or reflexive relationships and the permanent liminality of post-Fordist life. In a contrast with a covert not monogamy, polyamory constitutes a form of relationships that suggests a consensual from non-monogamy that establishes relationships while at the same time including emotional and relational novelty and uncertainty. Despite its normative certainty, John's cases shows how everyday monogamy can be quite convulsed and open and to negotiation, and this can be read under the unstable landscapes for post-Fordist societies. Nevertheless, although monogamy and polyamor take place in a society and constant transition, a liminal society, it could be argued that there are formations with different degrees of liminality, like monogamy and polyamory, to approach the different levels of liminality of societal formation. We could consider the distance from pre-existent structures and the temporal, spatial and subjective degree of such experience. Affectivity world arise as an emerging property of these arrangements, a liminal situation while become hotspot, insofar the participants do not possess the capacities to process towards a resolution into a novel structure. From this perspective, different levels of the liminal experience within monogamous or polyamorous frames could be sustained on the basis of the temporal, spatial, and subjective significance of the polyamorous movement and the uncertainty of the polyamorous transition. On the other hand, taking a relational and process-centered ontology and conceive I conceive the polyamory and monogamy as potential ordering that are actualized in particular semiotic material occasions. It could be argued that each ordering embodies a particular ethical and aesthetic configuration. In this case, for example, becoming polyamorous embodies values against hypocrisy and for honesty, respect, and consideration. It would also help to move or focus to particular events instead of taking the cultural and subjective location of the perturbed monogamy. And a rival polyamory as the locus of analysis. Paying attention to the process will allow to urge in the context of liminal hotspot that John is in the process of becoming both monogamous and polyamorous. In this sense, monogamy and polyamory could be understood as two potential orderings that manifest in different occasions, and John Case could be read as an exemplification of both. The issue lies on the implicit understanding of temporality in Turnerian liminality. If liminality is a transition between two stable ordering, we are framing phenomena in a linear temporal progression from a monogamous to a polyamorous ordering, and the polyamorous ordering is deferred or characters are caught in a suspended transition. If on the other hand, we consider monogamy and polyamory as two potential ordering, we have levels of intensity or agglomerative effects or monogamy or polyamory orderings. In our case, John is caught in unstable actualizations of these two orderings. Final remarks. A second ordering is connected with the emotion of frustration. John discovered polyamory as an alternative and he has a desire of being polyamorous. Even though he tried to explain to his wife and dragged her to this other order, he cannot. The wife reminds us that this is not just about him and her, but about the society and the roles they are immersed. The third ordering is connected with the emotion of resignation. Even in the polyamory is an alternative for John. He can define himself as polyamorous. He has to postpone it. Then polyamory is not presented as an immediate immediate solution but as a yearned possibility. Nevertheless, by stepping out of the monogamous norm, John moves from the embarrassment of cheating to a political future. John is not just trapped in those stalemates, but he is lost between different poles too. Poles do not have a direct and unique correspondence with monogamy or polyamory. He is oscillating between stability, instability, pain, well-being, unconstrained. He is aware about the stability he has when he was in the monogamy before he broke the rule, but as well there is a promise of another stability when he reaches the polyamory. At the same time, he can feel the openness of being polyamorous or confessing the truth to the wife, but also the pain because he does not know what is going to happen. Muy bien, hasta aquí el capítulo 5. En la siguiente ocasión vamos a leer el capítulo 6, domesticación del afecto y palabras carnales en el poliamor. Les recuerdo, mi nombre es Psicomarsusano y les recuerdo también que vamos a tener por ahí la conferencia en @Psicomarsusano en Instagram y posteriormente la vamos a poner en Biblioteca Psicológica Virtual. Así es que nos vemos en la siguiente. Hasta luego.